Hello and welcome, everyone. It's lovely to have your company here. My name's Morag Gamble, if we've not met before, and you are here for our last Wild and Kind Wednesday as part of a series we've been running for a couple of months now, a follow-on series from the Wild and Kind Festival. All of the replays will be available for every single session, as are still the replays of the entire International Festival of Wild and Kind Ideas. So I'll send out a reminder after this where you can access all of those amazing talks and conversations. But tonight, I'm really delighted to be able to welcome another wonderful speaker who's someone who's actually been on the podcast earlier. Also, just to say too that this event is being hosted by the Permaculture Education Institute, which I lead. And thank you to anyone who donated when you came to be part of this. Every single dollar that comes in to any of these events is sent 100% to wild and kind projects in places of need. And so we have raised through these wild and kind festivals, I think something like $6,000 or $7,000. So absolutely phenomenal. And if we add that to the Wild and Kind Festival, that's about $30,000. So thank you so much. That has made an enormous difference to so many projects. Like thousands of people are accessing community learning centres and permaculture programs in refugee communities and all different sorts of places. So thank you, thank you, thank you is what I wanted to say about that. Um, Also, before I begin too, just to acknowledge that I'm calling in from the unceded lands of the Jinnaburra and the Gubbi Gubbi here in southeast Queensland and pay my respects to elders past and present. Today we're focusing on mushrooms, mushroom growing, mushroom harvesting, mushroom eating, all things mushroom. And I'd like to welcome in Buttons Mira. Now let me just add you to the screen here. There we are. Welcome. Lovely to have you
Hello.
here.
Thanks for having me.
So it has been, I was trying to think of when it was that we last spoke, but it's a couple of years now talking
Mhm.
about the mushroomery. I think the conversation we had was related to Urban Agriculture Month with Sustain, and I was
Oh,
talking to a
yeah.
whole lot of people doing amazing urban agriculture projects across Australia. And your project, the Mushroomery, was one of those featured in that. And you've now since turned that into a book, which we're going to show you inside of a little bit of that. So, welcome. Perhaps we could begin just by, maybe if you could let us know where you're calling in from, and also um, just to give us a bit of an overview of what the mushroomery is. If people didn't hear the previous conversation, which
Mm.
was many years ago, so it's a time to refresh and say where it's at.
Yeah, I'm calling in from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, down in Melbourne. And my farm is located in Alphington, so like 20 minutes from the CBD. So a super urban mushroom farm. Um, yeah, so I've got 5 shipping containers that we grow mushrooms in. Well, only 2 of them really grow mushrooms, and a third every so often. But yeah, so little urban farm, um, selling and growing mushrooms for restaurants. And the community for farmers markets. We've got a CSA, all those sorts of things, and it's super urban. So I can have people and do lessons, and everybody can see in the urban hub where their food comes from and how it grows. So it's really nice to be in an urban environment so that people have more contact to how their food grows and where it comes from.
What
Yeah.
inspired you to focus on mushrooms as is
Okay.
because it's a very niche market that you've found yourself in there.
Totally. Well, I got really hooked in growing my own food. So I my one of my housemates years and years and years ago, um, did all the weeding in the garden and just kind of left it bare. And I found myself down at Ceres Community Garden and in their nursery and thought, oh, maybe I'll buy some seedlings. So I bought some seedlings and took them home, put them in the garden, and just watched these vegetables grow. And I just got so blown away. Like I realized I was so disconnected from what like a zucchini plant looked like or what a tomato plant looked like. And then I found it just so amazing. Um, Watching this food grow and then nurturing it and giving it all this love, and it just seemed to taste so much better as well. And then I just got so hooked. I just started pulling bushes out of the garden and putting vegetables in and in my rental property. And yeah, before I knew it, pretty much the whole garden was vegetables. And I had a little space down the side of the house. Most houses have it here in Melbourne, just a little walkway down the side of the house. And I was kind of trying to think, what am I going to grow in this space? Because it's kind of just like a dead space. And somebody said to me, oh, why don't you try and grow mushrooms there? And I was like, oh, how do you grow mushrooms? And yeah, I realized it was a completely different way of growing that I had never kind of seen before. So I went on a little bit of a journey of learning how to grow mushrooms. And in that journey, I realized there was so many varieties of mushrooms that we didn't have access to. Um, and in that time, I was trying to find a new career path. And so I thought, oh, maybe this can be my new career path. And yeah, so then I started trying to grow mushrooms and I went and did a 2-day course and I came home and started trying to grow mushrooms and I was just growing a whole lot of green mold. um, and I was like, oh no, but this is my new career path. And so then I ended up emailing a whole lot of gourmet mushroom farms asking if I could come and do some volunteering. At that time, there wasn't actually that many. Nobody would take me on in Melbourne. So then I started trying interstate, and I was really lucky. A place up in Noosa was like, oh, yeah, come for a week. So I went up there for a week and yeah, learned how to grow mushrooms. And then I came home and I started trying to inoculate mushrooms and I was having all this success. And I was like, great, now I'm going to upscale. So then I got my friend over and we like built this ramshackle greenhouse down the side of my house, which was like 10 meters long and 1 meter wide. So 10 square meters. And I started growing in there. I turned half of it into a dark room and half of it into a sunroom. And I was growing between 10 to 40 kilos of mushrooms a week.
Wow.
So, yeah, all of a sudden I was like, what am I going to do with all these mushrooms? And so
So was
I,
it that point where you started selling them, or were you
yeah,
still?
I ended up just going and knocking on all these different restaurant and cafes doors and got some customers. So yeah, I was supplying customers and yeah, I kind of grew out of that space pretty quickly. Yeah.
And then you moved on to this site where you've got the shipping containers. So
Mm.
can you talk a bit about that transition from backyard growing to actually setting up what's like an urban mushroom farm? How did you find the land in the city? How did you get
Yeah.
the support
Mm.
to get the infrastructure set up? Because, like I think this piece of going from sort of the backyard growing and experimenting to actually getting to the scale that you have is a really interesting story of how you've managed to make that work.
I mean, it's definitely a very, I definitely threw myself in the deep end. There
You
was a
kind of
lot to
need to with these sorts
learn.
of projects, don't you?
Yeah.
If you get a bit cautious, you probably, oh no, I think I might try something else.
Yeah. I suppose initially, I suppose I spent a lot of time like probably 6 months or more trying to figure out how to do the transition. Um, and yeah, I called council, and because I'd heard, that if you want to start a market garden, like you can just call the council and be like, do you have any land where I can come and set up?
Really?
Yeah,
Is that a thing for your particular council or across Melbourne
it
that
seems to be a thing in Melbourne.
so they will make land available to you if you want to start an urban farm
Yeah,
as
if
a
they
commercial
have,
farm or a community farm? Sorry, a few too many questions.
it's more if they have land that they can't do anything else with. So, like, for instance, if, it might be near a river, or there's certain, I forget the name of it, but there's certain types of land where you can say, I want to start a community garden or I want to start farming this land, and you can do that.
Do they have a map of that? Can you kind of go and say, hello, I'd like to look at your map of available land, please?
No, but I did call the council and try this sort of thing. But it's a bit trickier with mushroom farming because unfortunately you need power.
Mm,
Whereas if you're starting just like a market garden, all you really need is water. So it's a lot easier to do that. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely an option here in Melbourne if you do want to
amazing.
start a market garden. Um, Although I would say council is very annoying to deal with because I am currently on council land.
Ah, right.
But so yeah, I tried doing all those sorts of things, but then I ended up finding a friend who was also growing mushrooms in their backyard. And we were looking at starting, like, collaborating as co-farmers, still separate businesses, but just to, set up and start growing, like just do the transition together, but
So
still
both doing
stay
mushrooms,
separate.
but
Yeah.
oh, what? That's such a nice idea to have a sort of a friend to do it with in a way. Did that work?
Yeah.
Did you manage to do that or?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm neighbours with sporadical city mushrooms. So my business is the Mushroomery, and my neighbour is sporadical city mushrooms. And so yeah, we decided to do the transition together because there were so many unknowns of, like, we need to engage electricians, we need to engage plumbers, we need to talk to, you know, um, people who fit out shipping containers. There's all sorts of stuff that we had to figure out. So it made that transition a bit easier doing it with somebody else.
Did
Um,
you have funding to get started in that way, like to do all this, or was there community food, local food grants that made it possible, or did you take out a loan to do it? I'm just curious to know, like, what is that? What was the financial transition for you?
well, I used all my life savings.
Right.
And
You
so
invested in yourself, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I thought, like, I'll invest in this. Like, the money was I had been saving was to buy a house one day, but instead I put it into a farm, which we're yet to see if that will have paid off at all. Um, yeah, so I did that. And then I did get like some grants along the way. Like, unfortunately, when we moved, um, it was like we moved in December just before COVID hit. So it was quite a tricky time.
How
So
did you sell during COVID? Was Melbourne was like the biggest lockdowns ever, so there wouldn't have been markets. You probably couldn't have done community
oh,
food systems or anything. How did you do it?
well, farmers markets still happened,
Really? Huh.
because it was open air. So, and they were actually the busiest they've ever been because people had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
But because we only just moved in to the setup, like, I didn't really have enough mushrooms yet to go to farmers market. At least that's what I thought. In hindsight, I probably just should have gone straight away.
Started
But
build that trust. Yeah.
as it went on, I was going to those markets, but it just took a little while. So initially, when COVID hit, I had like my first crops of mushrooms in the shipping containers, and I'd like gone all in. And I had restaurants, and I really had a very I didn't have a very diverse customer basis.
Mm.
So as soon as COVID hit, I was working in a pub as well to try and get through that transition. Um, and so as soon as COVID hit, I lost my job, but I also lost all the restaurants.
Gosh.
So it was a bit of a weird time. But it was kind of it was a blessing because I was still setting up the farm, and I kind of felt like the world froze for me to set up the farm. But also, yeah, it was a blessing in the sense that I really had to diversify my customer basis because it wasn't really stable just having restaurants. So I always planned to go into doing markets anyway, but it just kind of fast tracked that for me. And I set up a CSA as well.
Yeah, I
And
wanted to ask you about that. So the CSA is where people are doing direct purchasing just from you? Like, is it just you and your customers, or do you have
yes.
like a network of people?
No, I mean, like, I have to say the CSA subscriptions have sort of dropped off more since COVID, but during COVID, I had a lot of CSA
Really
members.
interesting. I've heard a lot of people say that, like there's some systems up here in Brisbane too that quadrupled their orders during COVID times. And they thought, great, there's this awakening and people will continue to do it. But then when the lockdowns ended, people left and they fell flat, really flat.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the same with the box schemes here and also the farmers markets, to be honest. Like
Oh, really?
farmers markets like ramped up, box schemes ramped up. But the thing is, people were cooking at home a lot more than I think that's a big portion of it.
Yeah.
And, also people wanted to be making good food and cooking good
Mm.
food, and they had more money to spend on good food because they weren't going out and spending all their money on other things. So,
Mm.
yeah, but yeah, it's a
So,
shame. It's
mm,
like, how can we get people to continue to do that?
yeah, well, I think, that from what I'm hearing though, that like it's important to have lots of different possibilities where people can access your mushrooms. So you've got farmers markets, you've got direct selling to customers through your CSA, direct selling to restaurants. Are there any other places? Do you do like value adding, drying,
Oh,
like
yeah.
so what kind of products are you making from the mushrooms? Because I can imagine there'd be massive gluts at times that you just couldn't
Yeah.
possibly sell fresh. And I know I don't know if any of them are here right now. I think I saw Roland come in, but there's a number of people who are setting up mushroom farms in refugee settlements in East Africa as a
Oh,
way to grow, really great quality food, but also to dry and sell and value add and generate, right livelihoods through that. So what kind of value adding do you do for yours that you find is a really successful value add that people really love?
um, I'm doing quite a lot. So we do pickled mushrooms. I do mushroom garum, mushy mite. They're garum
She
and
might.
mushy mite. So mushy mite tastes a lot like Vegemite, but it's made of mushrooms. And the mushroom garum tastes like a soy sauce, but it's made of mushrooms. And they're both fermented for like 3 months. So that's probably the best one I do. Then, so I do the pickles. We also do mushroom extracts, like medicinal mushroom extracts.
Is
And
what do you do those with? Which particular mushrooms do you find that you do the
I
extracts with?
grow lion's mane and shiitake, lion's mane and reishi and turkey tail for those.
Mm. Can people
And
buy those online from you, or do they have to go to a market? Like, so do you have an
yeah,
online shop, I guess, is
yeah,
what
I've got an online shop as well.
yeah.
And then I'm also doing mushroom toasties. But I definitely found, like, in the early days, I wasn't like set up properly to do that sort of stuff. And I had a lot of, like, through COVID, I was giving a lot of mushrooms to food relief, which is really good. Like, you feel good to give to food relief, but it's not ideal when you're just losing money and you're not making enough money to make ends meet. So there has to be like, yeah, I got to a point where, I mean, occasionally I still give to food relief when I've got too much preserves, but um, generally we pretty much, yeah, we use everything that we grow now. So nothing goes to waste.
And you're also sharing with people how to grow their own mushrooms too. So people can come and do classes, and now you've got
Yeah,
the book as well, which shows people how they can do it.
totally. Yeah.
So is the education piece much of an income as well for you? Like, I mean, I'm imagining like as part of this diversification that, you've got the raw mushrooms, you've got the value added mushrooms, you've got the toasties like going out, and then education as well. How much a
Yeah.
part of what you do is the education side?
I mean, I think it could be more than what I'm doing at the moment, and I'd like that to happen. I mean, um, I'm planning to sell my farm at the moment, or trying to, and I think once I do sell that, I'll probably delve further into the education realm because I really love it. Uh, and at the moment, I'm probably only doing maybe 4 to 6 workshops a year with the occasional other little one here or there. So, um, yeah,
You
but
probably just don't get enough time. You said something like it's a big commitment being an urban
yeah,
mushroom farmer. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm working probably 6 days a week at the moment.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it's very labor intensive farming,
mm.
but yeah, when I was writing the book, I was probably only working 3 days a week, which was really nice.
We were having a chat before. This is to the listeners. We were having a chat before, and I was asking Buttons about um, how she was writing her book, and she said that Smith Street Books approached her to write this book, and they said, "Oh, can you do it in 2 months?" Which is like crazy short amount of time. She said, "No, we did it. We got it out in 6 months," and I'm still like, that's still phenomenally rapid for a book. We'll show you some of the pictures from inside the book in a moment, but I just wanted to stay a little bit on the farm side. So
Mm.
um, I wonder too whether you consult with people on how to start up a mushroom farm themselves. Like, how you were going out and trying to learn how to do this.
Mm.
Like, have you ever been asked to help someone else start up a mushroom farm? And
I definitely have been, and I feel quite guilty because I just don't have time to do it. But yeah, I definitely will have more time like that when,
yeah,
yeah, when I sell the farm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you like being an urban farmer? Um, what's that experience like? I mean, being in Melbourne, I suppose, is a particularly beautiful place to be trying to do that because Melbourne is such a foodie place, and the part of Melbourne that you're in is sort of very alive to all that. But, you know, as an urban farmer, what would you say to other people who are thinking about becoming an urban farmer?
Um, I think we need more urban farmers. Like, I think, a lot of people study permaculture and think, great, I'm going to move to the country and start a farm. But I think we need more people to start farms in the city. I mean, even when we were going through COVID, we had the councillors from Melbourne City Council come through and look at, because on the site that we're on, there's a few different people with market gardens and stuff. And they came to look at our site as an example of how we should be doing food in the city because the city of Melbourne was worried that they only had like, I don't know how many days of food, but it was a very small amount of time until they would run out of food if their delivery channels went down. So it was really front of mind at that time. Yeah, so I think urban farming is really important, and also not only for that fact of, having food in the city, but also just like I feel like people in the city are so disconnected from where food comes from. Like we're just completely losing touch of, you know, I don't know what mutton is, like what's the animal that actually comes from, or how to actually make the food that comes to our table. So I think urban farming is really important in that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's a network of urban farmers that you somehow collaborate with, or, like not necessarily in an organized way, but do you feel like there's a community of urban farmers that you have a belonging with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, through doing farmers markets, I'm definitely like have a community with other farmers, but also having my little mushroom farm, I'm connected with all these different community gardens as well, because all of the mulch that we grow our mushrooms on has to go somewhere.
Ah,
And
great.
so I have relationships with all sorts of community gardens in the urban environment who take the mulch, and they like wash the buckets for us and give us the buckets and take the mulch in exchange. So we have like we share. It's a trade basically, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And so where do you get the growing medium from? I can see some questions starting to come in the chat, and I'm going to ask those to you as well. Keep the questions coming. It's really great. Um, so part of that sort of cycle of growing, then, like what comes out of your farm that's not food goes to things like community gardens.
Yeah.
Where are you finding resources for your
I
growing medium?
find it really tricky to find. Um, so we predominantly grow on straw. Um, but I initially, when I started growing, I wanted to grow everything organic. And I did get hooked up with some organic farmer like suppliers, but then when you're growing mushrooms, it gets quite tricky because a lot of the time contamination can come from the straw, so the substrate that you're getting in. So I've had a lot of problems with contamination, and it just became this whole thing of I just need to find something that the mushrooms will grow on. So it's not necessarily always, you know, organic straw that I'm growing on. But also, the other thing is, being an urban farmer, we're quite disconnected from the rest of the rural farming community. So it's harder to like build connections and relationships with, um, suppliers. Um, so, yeah, I mean, if anybody out there has a connection with somebody with straw in Victoria, let me know.
Yeah, great.
Because, yeah, I'm always looking for more suppliers. And
Yeah.
this year, we're having a bit of a bad year for contamination. A few years ago, we had a terrible year. We had a lot of floods in Melbourne. Well, actually, they were pretty much, East Coast Australia
Mm.
wide.
Did you get
The flood.
affected in your farm? Did it come up to you? Because I know you're probably not far from a river where you are.
We didn't get affected directly by the floods, but it was more indirect. So, what happened that year was there was a lot more mold spores in the atmosphere around the time that the straw was being harvested, which meant that we got more contamination that year. So, all the straws generally cut around like January, late December, January. So, that was when all of these farms were being inundated with water. And if it's not dry enough when they cut the straw, then you get more mold contamination, basically. And generally, you can't even see it. So the straw looks wonderful and it's good for everything else that you might need to use it for. But when it comes to growing mushrooms,
Do
we
you
make the
steam
straw.
it as well? Like, how do you prepare it normally to sort of get rid of contaminants that know that they're? What's the preparation process?
Yeah, so we do pasteurization at my farm. You can also do sterilization. Um, but it's cheaper to do pasteurization en masse than it is to do sterilization en masse. Ideally, like sterilization is better. You kill off pretty much most things, whereas with pasteurization, some mold spores can still get through the process.
So what
Um,
does that mean, pasteurization of straw? What does that look like? What is that
there's
process?
a lot of different ways you can do pasteurization. Um, we do a hot water pasteurization at my farm. So we get the water up to 85 degrees and soak the straw in that water at 85 degrees for 2 hours. And that's enough to kill off most mold spores. um, yeah. So in my book, I actually talk about pasteurization. And when I started um, farming, I used to do a cold water pasteurization, which is a lot easier. So I go through that in the book if you want to know.
So what do you recommend it like for home growers to do a hot water or cold? Like, what do
I'd
you think?
recommend a cold water pasteurization. It's definitely the easiest. The
So is that
only
just soaking the straw in cold water for a couple of hours? Is that what you're
It's
saying?
a cold water lime pasteurization. So what you would need is, yeah, you need lime powder, the rock powder,
Mm.
and usually I would say like if you were going to do a whole bale of straw, you might need about a tablespoon of lime powder. And what you can do is you can go and get those little pH testers from your pool shop and just pop that in just to make sure your pH is right. Now, I haven't done a cold water pasteurization in a long time,
I'm
so
just looking for
I
the do you know
think
what
that
page it's on?
I
I'm
think
looking for
it's 12, the
oh,
pasteurization, but I'd have to have a look.
that's all right. I just wanted to show people like that in the book. Sorry, I've got it wrong. It's not probably not the pasteurization one, but every single thing that you have in here has really great um descriptions of it and diagrams of it. So, it's definitely um something to have a look at. I'm sorry, I can't find it without
I
completely
think
disengaging from talking with you. So I'm gonna do that.
I'll have to have a look later.
Yeah.
I think it's around 12. It's quite a high pH
Mm.
for oyster mushrooms if you're doing oyster mushrooms, which if you're using straw, you're more likely to be doing oyster mushrooms. So different mushrooms prefer different food. And in the mushroom growing world, we call that food substrate. So oyster mushrooms love straw. They also like hardwood, but you can get quite experimental with oyster mushrooms. They just like a dry carbon to grow on. But then mushrooms like shiitake, they prefer hardwood. Um, so yeah, if you're starting out growing mushrooms, you've just got to look up what your particular type of mushroom likes to grow on. But I think I saw somebody in the comments asked what sort of mushrooms I grow.
Mm.
So I personally predominantly grow oyster mushrooms just because I am growing in an urban environment and we have a much smaller space to work with, so we can get the highest yields of oyster mushrooms. But we do grow a tiny bit of lion's mane and shiitakes. And I'm doing a few other little ones, like I said, the reishi and the turkey tail, but much smaller quantities. Um, yeah.
So do you do the shiitakes in your shipping containers as well, or do you have like logs outside around your shipping containers for those?
No, I'm doing them inside, but not many. The thing is, if you grow on logs, it's a very slow process, which you might know. Because if you think of logs, it's a big, dense log, whereas if you were to grow on sawdust, it's all broken up. So the mycelium can run through that broken up sawdust much quicker than it can go through the log, the dense log. So if you're growing shiitakes in sawdust, it could take like maybe 6 to 12 weeks till they start fruiting, whereas with a log, it's more likely to be a year or more. And that depends on the site, like the width of the log. So the smaller the log, like might be a year if it's like, say, 10 meters in diameter or something,
Mm.
10 centimeters, sorry. Whereas if it's like much wider, it could be 3 years until you start to see any fruit at all. So,
Wow.
with our small space in the urban environment, we just don't have the space to have all these logs waiting for them to fruit. Um, so, yeah, we're
Yeah.
mainly doing it on sawdust.
And oh wow, that's really interesting that that works so well and so quickly. That's amazing. Yeah. Someone here, Shu has asked, can you share resources on how to grow mushrooms in the back garden? Always been concerned about heavy metal pollution in soil in the urban area. However, I guess it might not affect mushroom growing as you probably bring in external medium. So is mushroom growing a way to bypass contaminated soil in urban areas?
I mean, it's a really good question. I'm not a mycologist, I'm a mushroom farmer, but what I will say is um, I don't know if anybody's heard of um, Paul Stamets, but he was engaged to be part of a science experiment, and they had like a few different scientists, and they were all given like an oil spill, and they all tried a different technique to try and clean up that oil spill. um, Paul Stamets put oyster mushroom spent blocks. So spent blocks, spent means they've been used to fruit already, on that oil spill, and he had the greatest success out of any experiment there. I have a friend. Her business is called Myco Solutions in Melbourne, and she was experimenting with teaching oyster mushroom mycelium to eat cigarette butts, and she was having great success. So she was training that mycelium to eat the cigarette butts as food. It
How did
just
she train the mushrooms to eat? So just kept feeding them that.
She probably would have just fed them only that. I mean, some people are training oysters.
They'd
Well,
probably
they
choose not
can
to eat that, would they? Like they'd probably go, yeah, no thanks. I'm
if
going over
there's a
here.
better option, yeah. But some people are training them to eat plastic. But the thing is, I messaged Amanda and I said, "Oh, if you grow mushrooms on these cigarette butts, can you eat them?" And she said, "Oh, well, I wouldn't recommend it." But
No.
I think like the idea is that if you uh, go through a number of cycles, so you just keep, say, you grow the mushrooms on the cigarette butts, and then you like take a little bit of that, and then you grow some, you keep feeding it different things that potentially will get to a point where we can't actually see those toxins
Right.
anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that people and mycologists
Mm,
are experimenting with
yeah.
as we speak, because there is like constantly, uh, mycology is constantly evolving.
Mm.
We're learning things all the time about what mushroom mycelium can do. So, yeah, I think the question was more about, can I grow the mushrooms in my backyard, which you can, but I don't know quite as much about, whether they're going to be holding onto these toxins or not, in the garden at this stage. But I think that's a question that if you ask me in a few years, we'll have a better answer for,
Mm.
and maybe somebody already has figured it out.
And what do you know about other uses of mushrooms or the spent blocks like building or fabrics
Mm.
or other things and in your background in fashion and things. Is that something that you're exploring or familiar? Well, obviously familiar with, but yeah, what do you know about those things?
Well, I mean, people are using mycelium to make mushroom leathers. So they're like readily available now as vegan leathers. But also, people are using mycelium to make insulation, which is meant to be incredibly fire retardant and
Ah,
like amazing. So
which
really
bit
good
is
for
that?
Australia.
Is that the spent blocks or like what is it that's the insulation?
Yeah, so what they'll use is generally they're using a mix of sawdust and mycelium. And so they'll inoculate that sawdust with the mycelium, then put it into a mold of the shape that they want it to be. So some people are making polystyrene with it.
Right.
Um, Not polystyrene, it's a replacement for polystyrene.
Yeah.
So we've got people doing insulation, polystyrene, and they'll put it in that mold, then put it into, let it grow, fully colonize. So colonizing is once the mice, colonizing is the act of the mycelium moving over the substrate. The substrate is the food. So in this scenario, our substrate is the sawdust. So the mycelium will move over that sawdust, completely cover it, then it'll be fully colonized. And then you can go and put that into a dehydrator
Huh.
and dry it. And then you can use it as the insulation or the polystyrene replacement. And it's meant to be really waterproof as well.
Amazing.
And then, I mean, it's a much better material than polystyrene that will
Absolutely.
eventually break down into nature.
Yeah.
So, but
Do you know when they dehydrate it? Sorry, this is a very specific question, but when they dehydrate, does it actually go smaller or does it keep its structure but and just dry out?
that's a good question. I haven't done it.
No,
I don't think so. I mean, maybe,
I'm
maybe.
just wondering whether it would just go like stiff like a board and but keep its sort of structure as opposed to sort of shrinking like, I don't know.
I
I'm curious
don't
because I was
think
thinking,
we'll
wow,
shrink
I'd love to
it.
try that for, creating there's a new like little awning project that I'm wanting to do and I'm really resisting using those panels that have the polystyrene in the middle and I'd like to play with this. That could be fun.
Yeah, well, I also, one of my neighbors was experimenting with it, and they've been doing like planter boxes out of it and
Ah.
also stubby holders. And they
So
haven't
planter
told
boxes, so
me.
it doesn't actually fall apart when you put the soil and water. It actually holds the structure.
Yeah, yeah, it will last for, he was saying to me it could be like, it was definitely more than a year. It could be years that that would last for until it completely
Amazing.
breaks down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like plastic containers don't last that long either. They tend to break within a short period of time. So having something that only lasts a few years like that is
Mm.
absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
amazing what it's doing. I mean, Amanda was also doing experimentations with like they call it mycotex. It's like if you have worn out fabric that you really love, you can inoculate it with mycelium to reinvigorate it.
What?
Yeah,
Do that?
I know, but I mean, I was kind of asking her why would people do like but yeah, that's a thing too.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So
so
it
interesting.
just like, gives the fabric more structure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ah. I want to turn a bit now to in the kitchen
Oh
because
yeah.
you're an absolute food loving girl and you love cooking your mushrooms. And something that I was reading in your book about when you start cooking your mushrooms, you often just use a little bit of water. You don't put them in oil or anything. It's just a little bit of water, or even just cooking them in their own. So, like,
Mm.
what's one of your um some of your best tips on on cooking mushrooms. That I thought was a really good one. Also, that you're talking about, it brings out the umami flavors. So maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, talk us through some of those um, processes you use. I was thinking one you were talking about like that sort of steaming, so roasting them, um,
Oh, yeah.
different things you're using to like freeze different meals from them. The pickling, which I've never eaten mushroom pickles, and I'd love to
Oh,
try them. They
really?
sound amazing.
They're good for the texture.
Mm.
But yeah, they're delicious. I would say I feel like definitely doing all the markets and everything, there's a lot of people have an idea of how a mushroom, like, it's like, oh, you're selling oysters, then they must be for stir fries. And it's like, no, actually, you can do anything with them, not just stir fries. So you can do absolutely anything with any of these mushrooms, really, and just give it a go. But yeah, I'd say with oyster mushrooms, I do absolutely love roasting them until they're nice and golden brown.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's definitely like with oyster mushrooms, particularly, and shiitake, like you can't really overcook them. You
Mm.
can cook them for so long. Like I slow cook them, and yeah, they're delicious. They keep their texture, and yeah, they act a bit quite a lot different to your like Swiss browns and stuff like that.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
So they
but so
keep their texture and structure more than the others, which kind of will fall apart quite quickly.
yeah, and so you can cook them for hours and
Mm.
they're great. You can't overcook them. Um, yeah, so in the back of the book, yeah, so half of the book that I've written is all about cultivation. So we go through how to cultivate shiitake, lion's mane, and oyster mushrooms, and I sort of go through three different methods of growing, and you can kind of chop and change which mushroom you want to do in which way. Um, but then the last half of the book is all about how to cook your delicious mushrooms. And there's everything from um, carbonara to uh, stroganoff to pho, or just frying them up and having them on toast.
And I
Um,
liked also like, things like you had the like a mushroom pate and even making like mushroom burgers. I'm thinking that might be something that I could get my 13-year-old
oh
to eat.
yeah, totally. I find like yeah, oyster mushrooms, they're a good mushroom sometimes for people who aren't big on mushrooms. Um, I've had a few converts.
Should I share some of the pictures? Let's just do that so people can get a sense of it. Let me just trying to work out. Here we go. I'm going to share that and play that.
But oh,
Oh,
another thing, my neighbor's been just I just had this thought about how we were talking about chemicals in soil. But my neighbor, he's started doing myco soil rehabilitation. So he is doing this sort of work, and it's with heavy metals. I can't believe I didn't think of that then. But apparently, like sunflowers and mycelium are really good at pulling the heavy metals out of the ground. So somehow he's doing work with like inoculating the soil and also growing sunflowers. And then you can like pull the sunflower out of the garden, and that takes the heavy metals out of the garden.
ah.
And then you can sort of take the sunflower to the tip or wherever you want to
Yeah, I was
take
going to say,
heavy
what do you do
metals.
with the poor sunflower after
Yeah.
that?
But yeah, so he's working on doing that.
So I'm just going to go through some of these pictures and you can tell us about. So this is the
Yeah,
cover
sure.
of the book. There we go. So maybe this is a bit more about your
Oh,
story. Perhaps
yeah.
was
I
there
didn't
something
realize you
about
said
that that you
that.
wanted to add in that we didn't talk about
Oh, I
before?
think I probably talked about all of that.
All right. So it goes through talking about different kind of mushrooms and what is a mushroom and what is mycelium and like a lot of that background information about the different types.
And these are all the beautiful mushrooms you can grow.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're really they're nature's artwork.
Mm. So
Yeah.
tell us what's going on here in this um,
Well, this is just
infographic.
showing you all the steps that you can go through. So you can start with a fresh mushroom, then create an agar culture, or you can create a liquid culture. Then from that culture, you can create more cultures. So cultures in the mushroom growing world are kind of like your seed packet.
Huh.
So it's just what we hold the spores in or the mycelium in.
Yeah. And you can see
Then,
here what your farm looks like, stacked
yes,
buckets.
yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned that. I must have. We grow in buckets, and they're all old feta buckets. So I'm just trying to cut down on that plastic waste. So we've been using these buckets for like some of them for like 7 years and they're still going, but they are starting to break now.
How many different colors of oyster mushrooms are you growing?
Ooh, more than five.
Mm.
We
What's
grow the
growing
really
just
bright pink ones in summer.
what's growing near your buttons? Buttons?
Uh,
What's that little one there?
oh, just there. It's a yellow oyster,
Huh.
but it's just in the beginning of growing, so they can look kind of more like brains to begin with, and they'll
Yeah,
start to
yeah,
open up.
yeah. All right. So what are we looking at here?
This is us inoculating a bucket, a fruiting bucket. And so in this image, I'm inoculating oyster mushrooms in straw. So, yeah, in the book, with all of the different types of growing methods, we have like pictures of how to actually do all the steps. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to understand.
Mm.
And this is like a little setup I had in my backyard. So just in a little Bunnings greenhouse, which is what you can do. So mushrooms, everybody says mushrooms, oh, they fruit and they're like grow in the dark. Well, we have the first stage, which is the incubation stage, which is done in the dark room. But when they fruit, they actually like to be in the sunlight. If you think of like mushrooms in the wild, the mycelium's underground in the dark. So that's where we grow our mycelium in the dark. But as soon as the mushroom starts to fruit, it actually pops its head out into the light. So
Okay,
we need to
awesome.
move our buckets into the light once they start to fruit.
And
Yeah.
then there's some beautiful pictures of all your different recipes as well.
Yeah, so that's the mushroom pho, which is like a veggie pho, some mushroom pickles, really nice on cheese boards or on toast. Oh, and I did the beef Wellington because after last year's oh well, it's a few years ago now, Erin Patterson, um,
Okay.
it just like it tied in quite well because it kind of tied the book back together.
So
Um,
do you just want to tell the story for those people who may not have heard I mean, just a very snippet short, the Wellington story and the mushrooms was
yes, so
another case in Australia.
yeah, Erin Patterson had her family over for a lunch and she served them a poisonous beef Wellington. So she laced the beef Wellington with poisonous mushrooms, which were death cap mushrooms. But through that, she said to the police that she had got the mushrooms in an Asian grocery or in a supermarket And so I just wanted to um, make sure everybody knows that it's just not possible. Um, it's highly unlikely, basically, that in Australia you would find death cap mushrooms in a grocery because everybody who farms mushrooms, most people who farm mushrooms, sorry, grow in sheds, and death cap mushrooms are a mycorrhizal mushroom which has a relationship with a living tree. So you can't grow those mushrooms unless there is a living tree present and it's connected to its root system.
Yeah, right.
So you can't possibly grow death caps in a shed.
Did you find that your business went a bit weird when that was happening? That whole trial? Did your
Yeah,
whole conversations at the markets and wherever be around that all the time?
yeah.
So, is this safe?
um,
Can I eat it? Am I going to
yeah,
be poisoned? Yeah.
yeah, I was definitely getting all of those comments, but also I think like there's a portion of people who wouldn't always buy my mushrooms, and you know, they on a regular day, if that wasn't happening, they would have been like more curious, but instead they're like, oh no, no
Yeah,
mushrooms.
right. Just keep
So
walking
yeah,
past your stall. Yeah.
yeah, it definitely affected the industry. Like, I don't think it affected me quite as deeply because most of the places that I do business, like, people wouldn't let that
Yeah.
affect them,
And
but
you already have that relationship already.
totally, yeah.
I see we're coming to the end of our buttons, and I just wanted to make sure that I have not missed anyone's questions in the chat. If
Mm.
there are, please drop them down at the bottom. One question that Jerry's asked, she's over in Ireland. She says, "Do you ship your book to Ireland?"
Well, it will be published in the UK, so I don't know if that means Ireland as well, potentially. Sure.
Wow, it's
It'll be
closer than
close.
Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it going to be published by Permanent Publications, Buttons, or somebody else?
It's my publishers are Smith Street Books, but I don't really know how it will happen once it gets to the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
let you know, Jerry, once I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Buttons? We have like time for maybe one question more, I think, if we have a moment. When I share this replay out with you all, I will also share in the links to again to Buttons Mushroomery and to the book. And also maybe just to say, maybe do you want to pitch your farm, Buttons?
Oh
Like
yeah.
someone's interested in taking
If
on being a
anybody,
mushroom farmer.
yeah, if anybody wants to buy my mushroom farm, yeah, it's a pretty cool time. Like, I don't think, yeah. Um, I'm currently trying to sell the farm because I've got a new project or a few new projects I want to sink my teeth into. So I've built something that's really cool, I think. And yeah, if anybody wants to buy it, just jump on my website and there's a link to the ad. And you could be an urban farmer.
Great.
Also, there's a link to the book on there as well. And yeah, buy it from me. Don't buy it from Big W.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good thing to say, going straight to the source. That means that you get
Yeah.
more of the book
Yeah.
value. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I get 50% of the sale if you buy it directly from me, whereas if you
Ah,
buy it from like any other retail outlets, I get 15%. So it's
wow.
definitely better to buy it from me.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you don't have as much money, Big W is undercutting me, so you will get it cheaper from
Oh,
there, and I
right.
do understand.
Doris has asked if do you have an ebook? Will there be an ebook, perhaps, or
Um, I don't think so.
no? Okay, all right.
Don't know. I
And
haven't
one
been.
other question that's just come in the last call. Hello, Lavina. Can you grow on coffee grinds?
Yeah, you can. It's a little bit more tricky, just because uh, basically people grow on coffee grinds the day that it comes out of the coupler that the coffee comes through, because the coupler sterilizes the
Yeah.
coffee. So you need to do it that day. If you leave it for a few days,
It
then
goes
you
moldy,
may
doesn't
have
it?
contamination happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
just emptied my little coffee. I have like a coffee machine at home, and I just emptied the little tub that I've got, and the top bits were all nice, but down the bottom they'd gone moldy already. So yeah, I can imagine it wouldn't take long at all.
there's a nice orange mold that likes to grow on coffee.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Anyway, but also if you're growing on coffee, if you do want to do that, I would suggest growing like on a mix of coffee and straw, or
yeah,
coffee
right.
and sawdust.
And if someone is interested in taking on the mushroomery, do they get some training from you along the way? Like, do you pass on not just the infrastructure but also the how-to bits?
Yeah, yeah, I will be doing at least a year of on
Wow.
call, and like doing like probably a month of training,
Yeah,
to
amazing.
hand it over.
Yeah.
Um,
What a great
yeah.
offer. Well, I
Nice.
I thank you for coming and joining me today and joining all of us. And thank you everyone for being here. Good luck with the ebook. I hope everyone
Well,
goes and gets
thank
a
you so
copy of
much.
it and lets people know that it is out there. And if you know of anyone in Melbourne who's interested in becoming an urban mushroom farmer, you know who to put them in touch with now. So that is fabulous.
Great. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
yeah, thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's really wonderful to see you all again. And thank you, Buttons, for being my final wild and kind Wednesday guest. It's just been
Pleasure.
so much fun. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.